Hello everybody, Jim here to talk a little bit about the Anvil Hurricane loadout, which is a topic of debate on the forums and in the comments of my last video. In the background, you're watching me beat the 2.6 Vanduul Swarm in my Starfarer Gemini. This is the same footage that I used when I made the In the Hall of the Mountain King kill video. Later, I'll be testing time to kill on the loadout at the end of the video, but first I think we should address a few points. Feel free to skip ahead if you don't care, but you might be interested after you hear the questions. 1. Will you be able to control the turrets? 2. Is the Hurricane a well-armed death trap? And 3. Will it get nerfed? As for the turrets, I think we'll be able to control them just fine. This is an Anvil ship that shares assets with two other two-seat Anvil ships sporting man turrets, and both of those can use the turrets just fine. I believe the developers have already said that you'll need a kit to convert them in-game, but the option to control the turrets from the pilot seat will be there. I'm sure we'll find out in the Q&A, which may be up before I post this video. I'm checking constantly as I write this to see if the first one is up right now. Will it get nerfed? Possibly. But I think a lot of the nerfing we've seen has very specific reasons beyond people are complaining or because we felt like it. For example, I don't think the Freelancer lost size 4 guns because it hit too hard. I think it lost them because the developers were trying to scale the damage with larger ships. Making a jump in firepower that early in the upgrade cycle put damage out of whack for ships further up that scale. There is some precedent for this mentality. They recently did the same thing with ship speeds because they felt the fastest ships were too fast. For guns, you have to ask that if the Freelancer gets 4 size 4 guns, does that mean the Gemini gets a bump up, which potentially unbalances everything above that weight class? Do we say that a military transport with nearly 50 times the potential cargo value gets the same primary armament as a much smaller civilian freighter? Or do we shrink the main weapons on the Freelancer, which is a much simpler solution? When I think about it like that, as much as it pains me to say it, I probably would have made the same choice if I were in charge. Though don't touch my dir. Okay, anyway, will that happen to the Hurricane, a top-tier fighter designed to blow things up in a hurry at the expense of defenses? I don't know. Maybe, but somehow that seems less likely to me. Is it a death trap? That depends. The entire point of the Hurricane is to give up armor to increase maneuverability and add a whole bunch of guns to decrease time to kill. It's right there in the marketing material. This is supposed to increase pilot survivability. Pilot survivability is an interesting question. How can we test that? I decided to load up a Super Hornet with a pair of Bulldogs, Badgers, and Panthers because that's currently the highest DPS you can get on that ship without mounting the Flashfire mount, which may also be available to the Hurricane in the future with a much bigger gun, so that seemed unfair right now. To simulate the Hurricane, I had to pull out the Starfarer Gemini because that's the smallest ship that can mount 2 size 4 weapons right now. This all made sense to me because the Hurricane, in its current state, can mount 2 size 4s on the nose, and that is what I chose to put on the Gemini. This takes the turret completely out of the equation for people who insist you'll need a gunner, and it puts it within about 200 damage per second for the stock Hurricane loadout over 10 seconds. It's a little more damage than stock, but it should approximate that loadout fairly well for people who say the turret will be there and usable by the pilot, and they'd like to keep the gimbals on the front because they prefer to use the mouse. This solution only really disappoints me, the guy who hates gimbals on fighters because it ruins the joystick experience. I fix guns on everything smaller than a Gemini. It's just more fun. The Gemini will be using the unmanned turret, so I will be able to use the mouse. I won't be locking it. But that won't even come close to compensating for the lack of maneuverability in that huge ship, so I think that's fair as well. Let's see which ship kills pirates fastest, and which, if either of them, can kill the pirates before the ship itself takes damage. And remember, that Gemini is a huge, floating target. Let's go! The first thing I wanted to do was quickly give you an idea of the contenders. On the top right, you have Jim's choice for Hurricane Nose Gun. These will fit, currently, unless it gets nerfed and the hard point gets smaller. Down bottom, you have the highest DPS weapons that I could cram onto the wing mounts of the Super Hornet. So, just for comparison, this is what we're looking at in difference of size. Okay, What I've done here is I've killed 3 350Rs in the Super Hornet and 3 in the Gemini. I took the best run of the Super Hornet and compared it to the worst run of the Gemini. I think what you'll find is that, well, no, I know what you'll find is that the lag pips appear on the exact same frame. That's sort of our time marker. That's the start. And you'll find that I clip it with the Gemini and send it spinning off. Most times with the 350R, I blew it up immediately. The Super Hornet, you'll find, takes much longer to kill and does in fact take some damage. So maybe there is something to this time to kill increasing pilot survivability thing. Is this a perfect one-to-one comparison of what the ships will be like in the future? Absolutely not. That's ridiculous. But it does suggest that there's something to the more firepower equals living longer, even if your ship is a bit flimsier. Yeah, that Super Hornet's already lost the bottom gun. Anyway, no, it's not perfect, but I think it's an interesting test. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. If you want to argue with me, that's fine. I love arguing with you guys in the comments. Maybe I forgot to point something out. Maybe there's a professional pilot out there who wants to weigh in. I'd love to hear that. So, yeah, hit me up in the comments. Thank you all very much for watching. I will see you hopefully Friday, if they can get that QA out in a reasonable amount of time. Or maybe, if not, it'll be Saturday. Anyway, thank you all again for watching, and I will see you whenever next time may be.